It is not what you do that matters. It is why you do it. For a long time, I focused on appearances, doing the right thing, saying the right thing, looking like I had everything together. And from the outside, much of it probably looked fine. But internally, my motivations were not always healthy. Sometimes I was helping because I wanted approval. Sometimes I was succeeding because I wanted validation. Sometimes I was overextending myself because I was afraid people would stop loving me if I said no. The actions themselves may have looked positive, but the reason behind them told a very different story. And eventually, I realized something important. It is not what we do that shapes our lives. It is why we do it. Motivation changes everything. Two people can make the exact same choice for completely different reasons. One person helps because they genuinely care. Another helps because they need to feel needed. One person works hard because they feel inspired. Another works hard because they believe their worth depends on achievement. From the outside, the actions may look identical, but internally, they create very different experiences. I had to get honest about my why. This was uncomfortable for me at first because it required me to stop focusing only on my behavior and start focusing on my intention. Why was I saying yes when I wanted to say no? Why was I constantly proving myself? Why did I feel guilty resting? Why did I need validation so badly? Those questions forced me to look deeper, and the answers were not always easy. Good actions can still come from fear. This was one of my biggest realizations. Not every positive action comes from a healthy place. Sometimes people pleasing looks like kindness. Sometimes perfectionism looks like ambition. Sometimes overgiving looks like love. But underneath those actions can be fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. And when fear becomes the motivation behind everything, even success can feel exhausting. Your why shapes your experience. The reason behind your actions affect how those actions feel. When your choices are rooted in alignment, they tend to create peace. When they are rooted in fear, obligation, or insecurity, they tend to create pressure. That is why two people can live seemingly similar lives but feel completely different internally, because motivation matters. Awareness creates change. Once you become aware of your patterns, you begin to see things differently. You start noticing where your choices come from, where you are acting from love and where you are acting from fear, where you are being authentic and where you are performing. And that awareness creates the opportunity for change. I stopped needing everything to look perfect. There was a time when I cared deeply about how things appeared, how people perceived me, whether I looked successful, whether I seemed strong. But eventually, I realized that appearances mean very little if they are disconnected from truth, because no amount of external validation can quiet an internal disconnect. And no version of success feels fulfilling if it is built on abandoning yourself. Alignment feels different. When your actions align with your values, something shifts. You stop forcing so much. You stop performing. You stop needing every decision to prove something about your worth. And instead, your choices begin to feel more honest, more grounded, more peaceful. You do not need to judge yourself. Looking at your motivations is not about shame. It is about understanding. We all develop patterns based on our experiences, fears, and needs. The goal is not perfection. The goal is awareness. Because once you understand why you do something, you gain the power to choose differently if needed. Ask yourself the hard questions. Sometimes growth is less about changing your behavior and more about understanding it. Why are you chasing this goal? Why are you staying in this situation? Why are you saying yes? Why are you afraid to stop? Those answers can reveal a lot, not to criticize you, but to help you become more aligned with yourself. Intentions matter more than performance. At the end of the day, people may remember what you did, but your inner life is shaped by why you did it. Your peace, your confidence, your fulfillment, those things are deeply connected to intention. And when your actions come from a place of honesty rather than fear, your life begins to feel different. Not because everything becomes perfect, but because it becomes real. Choose from alignment, not fear. You do not have to overhaul your entire life overnight. You just have to start paying attention to what motivates you, to what drains you, to what feels aligned and what feels performative. Because your why matters. It shapes your relationships, your goals, your decisions, your sense of self. And the more honest you become about your motivations, the more authentic your life becomes. Slay reflection. S. See the pattern. What is one area of your life where you may need to look deeper at your motivation? L. Look beneath the action. Are your choices coming from alignment or fear? A. Acknowledge the truth. What might change if you became more honest about your why? Why? Your next step. What is one decision you can make today from a more authentic place? Call to action. Join the conversation. I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever realized that your motivation behind something mattered more than the action itself? Share your story in the comments. Let's cheer each other on. And if you know someone who might need this reminder, send this to them. Sometimes all we need is a nudge. I'm Carrie Genzel, reading a blog from stateofslay.com. Slay on.